Let's see. Let's see. Reagan says, great article. I need to work on using its wisdom. Thank you, Reagan. Andre says, woohoo. Thank you. Thank you. Don't let them get your goat, Grey Pill. That's exactly right. Thank you, Vampire King Darkness. I appreciate that. Benjamin. Bot feels triggered. Okay. Magpie says it's excellent and very relevant. I appreciate that, Magpie. Phil says free therapy session with sound advice. Well, I don't think Rumble does charge to stream anymore because I'm not paying them to stream anymore. So I'll stream on Rumble as long as it's free. That's pretty great. Yep. Triggering equals tough love. Exactly. Exactly. And Stevie says hello to others in the other chat rooms. Hello to everyone else not watching on YouTube. I'm not talking about the Jews today, Brent. Well, maybe we will on the stream later. We'll see. But so that's the article. Now, does anyone think that there's anything wrong with what I said? Does anyone think in the chat, and please feel free to type in and give me the business if you feel like it. Does anyone think that I said anything that was wrong? Does anyone think that I said anything that was mean-spirited? Does anyone think that I said anything that was narcissistic? Does anyone think anything was wrong? Bot says nope. James Jones says nope. Oh, King Peter of the chat. Rumble changed their policies. It's like YouTube now where you need a certain number of uploads to watch time. Excellent. That's pretty great. Jan says nope. Gloria says love it. Phil says he's my simp, so no, the answer is no, you can do no wrong. Thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. Nope. Carol says love it. That bitch says it was wrong that you addressed the truth of being triggered, so cluster B. Yeah, apparently I'm a cluster B narcissist. Reagan says it's helpful advice with tips we can use, so it was fine. Christopher says no. Well. Now let's watch an illustration of something else. Oh, actually, I want to show Catherine's chat. Catherine says, this is better than the therapy session I went to in college because I'm not getting threatened with jail by a lady who is smiling, and I don't know how to pronounce those things, but yes, no jail today. No jail today. No, especially because people have to learn to solve their own problems on their own time, in their own lifetime time. Yes, that's exactly right. People have to take responsibility. But now we're going to move into the second part of our stream where we're going to see an example. We're going to see an example of a completely different perception of this article. So here's what I want you guys to notice. People, there is no such thing as an objective reality. I know people don't like me saying that. They're like, Carlin, you sound like a postmodernist. No. People can perceive things in different ways. There are a whole bunch of you in the chat that perceived this article to be a good thing, to be a helpful thing, to be like a therapy session. There are a whole bunch of people that heard this article and thought, this is good, and this is really helpful, and this is sage life advice. Now, we are going to look at someone who thought the opposite. And I need to make sure I have my screen a certain width because I don't want Deb knowing the name of my Twitter account that I'm looking at this under. Because I do have burner accounts, as Deb knows. And I don't want Deb knowing what this burner account is. So Deb has a completely different perception of this article. And what I want to acknowledge, which is what Deb will never acknowledge, is that there are different ways to view things in the world. I might look at something and say, that's a good thing. Deb Fillman might look at something, exactly the same thing, and say, she is an evil, lying, narcissist bully, me. And we're looking at the exact same thing. So now we're going to look at a different perception of the article, and we're going to read Deb Fillman's 30-tweet thread about me that I woke up to find this morning. And again, I didn't mention Deb in this article, as you now know. I didn't send Deb this article. I didn't tag Deb in this article. Deb found this article on her own between the hours of 1 a.m. and 10 a.m. and before she had even had coffee. Wrote a 30-tweet Twitter thread about just how badly my article triggered her. So let's read. When sociopaths grown up to be organizational psychologists. A thread. 1. There is, hang on, let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. There we go. So to make I really don't want to reveal my Twitter handle. Okay. There is a 100% chance the writer of this piece will now say I was triggered to write this. That's what passes for discourse these days. Even when disordered people reveal themselves to be disordered and dangerous. It's your fault for noticing. And yes, Deb is absolutely triggered by this article. 100%. There is no reality in which Deb was not triggered by this article. I'm like, sorry guys, breaking news. You don't write 30 fucking tweets about someone unless they triggered you. I don't know the last time I wrote 30 tweets about someone. It just doesn't happen because she's absolutely triggered. If you look around the world and decide the solution to its problems is more bullying, if you use background in psychology to suss out where people are vulnerable, so you can poke and prod and manipulate them, all the while you are the sociopath. Now, Deb's going to make a lot of accusations in this tweet. She's going to call me a bully over and over and over and over again. But I didn't insult anyone in my article. I didn't hurl names in my article. I didn't say anyone was anything in my article. I just said, here is some helpful information that will help make your life better, presented in a satirical way. And Deb is like, she's a sociopath! I'm not the one hurling names, stepmom. You are the one hurling names. You are the one being a bully. You are the one insulting people. I didn't insult you, Deb. You insulted me. This is the ironclad law of woke projection in action right here. If you seek public office, claiming what ails us is we weren't picked on enough in high school and suggesting our desire for a more civil, live and let live society is nothing more than mommy or daddy issues, you're a would-be tyrant. Again, I think it's a little ironic that Deb is claiming that she is the civil and polite one when she has already called me a sociopath twice in 4 tweets, and I didn't insult her at all. Didn't even mention her. If you self-promote as a guide for parents to help them fight the sociopaths, bullies, and tyrants in their school while saying these things, you're adding yourself to my list of people to avoid like the plague. Deb, please start avoiding me like the plague, Deb. Please start avoiding me like the plague. Please. Deb, I created an entire fucking Twitter game entirely incentivized on you avoiding me like the plague. Please start avoiding me like the plague, Deb. No one mentioned you. Literally no one mentioned you, Deb. And by the way, what the holy hell does teaching parents how to search websites have to do with not getting triggered? Writing an article about how not to get triggered. The two things have nothing to do with each other. Phil says, Deb needs to smoke a blunt and calm the fuck down. Phil, truer words have never been spoken. Magpie says, I'd give her an edible. Bot says, little Debbie needs chocolate. Andre says, lazy Deb, too lazy to learn respect for others. Well, no, they're all at 0 today in the Twitter game. They've all been tweeting about me all day again. They're all reset to 0 like early this morning. The whole piece is a study in projection. Deb, we should have a conversation about projection. We really should. Let's begin where the author says the way to help people is to find their weakness and trigger them. Now, I would like someone in reading this passage to point out to me where I said, find people's weakness and trigger them. Triggering people is a game where it's your job to know their emotions better than they know themselves. It's a game of interpersonal insight. And when you trigger someone, if they're smart, they'll gain insight into what makes them tick. That will make them stronger. You'll help them develop the resilience that they should have learned from being bullied in elementary school, which was an important training ground for what the real world really is. I don't apologize. I don't take any of it back. Not sorry. Leaving aside the Freudian slip game insight, yes, Deb, you are correct. There was a typo in my article. Thank you for identifying the typo in my article. I fixed it. This is just justifying bullying. It's irrational and malicious, says the woman who wrote 30 tweets about me about an article that wasn't about her. Irrational and malicious indeed, Deb. Irrational and malicious indeed. If you think someone is behaving in ways that are self-defeating, bully them. And they should have been bullied in elementary school, as she suggests she was. I mean, I was bullied in elementary school. I was bullied in middle school. I was bullied in high school. Let's not even get into my mommy and daddy issues. But Deb, the difference between you and me is I went to fucking therapy. I went to therapy. I went to therapy. I went to Peru and did ayahuasca. I have a life coach I talk to every single week. I managed my emotional baggage, Deb. You didn't. There is nothing wrong with having emotional baggage. But you gotta take care of that shit, man. And there are a million tools and a million resources in life to help you manage the wrongs that have been done to you in your life. Whatever doesn't kill us, have I had emotional trauma? Your ass, I have. I'm insulted on Twitter every single day by people like Deb, who pull apart every single thing that I say and twist it and contort it so that it means that I am evil and they are good. But because I've gone to therapy and I've done ayahuasca and I utilize weed to calm the fuck down, which is what you should be doing too, Deb, and I have a life coach, and I do also, and I meditate like a motherfucker, I mitigate this bullshit. Deb could learn a lot from this article, but she's choosing to have a hissy fit instead. This is a textbook example of repeating the cycle of abuse, and it reveals more about the author's lack of resilience than anyone else's. People who've been bullied and have gotten over it abhor bullying, and don't suggest it as a tool to help other people. Well, Deb, nowhere in the article did I use the term bullying, Deb. That's the term you used. That's the term you used. I didn't say the term bullying. If I had said the term bullying, well, I did. I just said bullied in elementary school, but that's not what triggering is. Healthy people don't leverage the weakness of others unless they're business competitors or at war, and neither is personal or meant to help the other side. They don't suggest you desensitize yourself to cruelty and abuse so you can tolerate more. And then this is the part where I said, this is one of the best parts of the article. I'm sorry. This is one of the absolute best parts of this entire article. The trigger comes from somewhere. It's the job of the person experiencing the trigger to identify why it's triggering them. Then they can work on it. Every time they get triggered, it'll impact them a little less. And let me tell you what, if you get triggered enough, then eventually you will not give a fuck about anything that anyone throws at you. And when you don't give a fuck, that's when you're truly free. This is one of the better points in the entire article, because I'm directly talking about the fact that when you put yourself in a position to take responsibility for your emotions and how you're responding in every single circumstance, that's when you free yourself from being emotionally manipulated by other people like Deb fucking Fillman. So Deb can complain all she wants. Every single thing that I said is 100% true. If you desensitize yourself to emotional manipulation like what Deb is doing in this Twitter thread, it will stop impacting you. You will stop caring. And that's a good thing, because when you are not susceptible to the emotional manipulation of others, that's when you're really free. That's when you're free to think the ideas that they don't want you to think. That's when you're free to say the words that they don't want you to say. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Nerd2 says, reading comprehension is a dead skill. Isn't that the truth? Jenny's getting inky with it, says, Deb should look in the mirror. She's the one projecting. Oh, don't I know it? Chris B says, wow, how do people have nothing to do to the point that they pounce on everything you write the minute you put it out there? Sometimes I am working or something, but they must. Chris, I got to tell you, I was legitimately shocked because I tweeted this article at like 1 a.m. And I went to bed and I woke up and found a fucking essay about me from Deb. Moving on. Well, it's true that as adults, we are ultimately responsible for our own mental health. Smartest thing that Deb said in this entire Twitter thread. Well, it's true that we as adults are ultimately responsible for our own mental health. Resilience and insensitivity are not the same thing. Resilient people pick their understand and respect boundaries and deal with others in good faith. Well, it seems to me, Deb, that quite a few people think I was dealing in good faith. You're the one that projected that I wasn't. Doing the work on ourselves shouldn't and doesn't require accepting rudeness or disrespect from other people. You don't say, Deb. It just requires us to clearly identify where we end and others begin. And that can be learned perfectly well without bullying or exposure to triggers. If people are not resilient today, it's because they've been told what other people must be and do to make them comfortable and what they must do to make others comfortable. This is a recipe for confusion, cognitive distortion, and competition for resources. Really, Deb? Really? Because it seems to me that you are the person in this case telling people what they must say and do to make you feel comfortable. It seems to me, Deb, that you're the person that you're fucking tweeting about. Oh, man. King Peter in the chat. Thank you. YouTube wants to censor my super chat, so here's a replacement. I'm sorry, Peter. That sucks, but I appreciate the super chat. That's why, Phil, that's why Peter is King Peter of the chat. No, we also enjoy him and love him. Jenny says, she should understand that projecting means one assumes the motives of other based on their own assumptions and motives. She clearly missed the point of the whole article in that set. I mean, I think it's like, it really is, Jenny, because Deb actually read the article. She read it. It wasn't like she just looked at the headline. She read the whole fucking article. You can't tell a child to tolerate everything and at the same time report microaggressions. You can't celebrate victimhood and expect children not to want to identify as victims. You can't demand or teach empathy to people constantly on the lookout for slights. Exactly, Deb. Exactly the point I'm making. We agree. Secure attachment does more to encourage resilience than any other factor in life. Insecure attachments, often the result of bullying and neglect, more often lead to insecurity, fragility, hypervigilance, and aggression, either towards the self or others. Peter says, bullying is good, teasing is good, triggering is good. These things are appropriate social ostracism and build resiliency. They cannot become abuse, harassment, or physical. We punish those acts. That's right, King Peter. This part right here speaks volumes about the lack of resilience and rationality of its author. What triggers is always our fault, she asserts. But is that true? Yes. Yes. You are responsible for your own triggers, Deb. I am not responsible for your emotional baggage. You are responsible for your emotional baggage. Where does that leave room for civil discourse? Is that not licensed to brutalize indiscriminately? Deb literally thinks that my article is brutalizing her indiscriminately when it didn't even mention her. Marion says, Jesus, it's like this chick was just stalking for an excuse to have a rant. Isn't that correct? Yes. Deb is projecting so much she could open a movie theater. Yes, she is. Coming soon, Carlin made a whole video about me. Oh, gosh. Isn't it the truth? There is a vast difference between someone being offended because you hold a different opinion than they do and someone pushing back or reacting because you're defaming, stalking, and projecting your own abusive behaviors onto them. So Deb thinks in my article I was defaming her, stalking her, and projecting my own abusive behavior onto her when she wasn't even mentioned. Words are not violence, Deb. Oh, Catherine, just wait for it. We're going to get to this one. Deb literally says words are violence in this Twitter thread. She literally said words are violence. Hang on, we're going to get to it. But that bitch is betting you $100 that Deb is going to claim I'm harassing her by talking about her public Twitter thread. People are responsible for themselves, Deborah. Yeah, Deb is going to be at 0 for the rest of the week. Deb is the worst player in the Twitter game. We're only like halfway through this Twitter thread, guys. We're only halfway. Blaming others for them being justifiably angry, frustrated, or responsive to all your abuse is what sociopaths do. And sociopaths are so lacking in resilience, they use people as objects because they can't handle the vulnerability required to be honest with voluntary mutual exchange. Voluntary mutual exchange. Deb, you were the one who blocked me on Twitter. I didn't block you on Twitter first, Deb. You blocked me. Voluntary mutual exchange. Yeah, okay, sure. This is textbook blame shifting. We don't define how justified someone is to be offended by the fact that they're not offended alone. That's literally what the woke do. It's not less woke when you reverse victim offender, Darvo. This is like that like reverse like basically Deb is saying that I'm a dark triad narcissist. Deb is saying I'm a dark triad cluster B narcissist. That's what she's saying. Jenny says, what she's saying sounds like she expects people to be emotionally tied to the people triggering them. She certainly is. It's okay to walk away, Deb. Not everything has to be a battle. Yes, Deb. It's okay to walk away and never talk about me ever again. It's all right, Deb. I promise. I promise. And then this is the part where I kind of sort of talked about how I triggered Deb and her band of merry friends way too much, which I did. I feel bad. Legitimately. I went too far with the triggering. And now they're all obsessed with me and can't stop thinking about me. But it's not my fault, man. They gotta fix their own bullshit. They gotta fix their own bullshit. Consequences or impacts in wokish tell us very little about why someone did something to us or how deserving we were of that treatment. In fact, thinking they do indicates immaturity in moral development. So now Deb is saying that me asserting that people take responsibility for their own feelings and their own emotional baggage represents an immaturity in emotional development. I don't think that's true, but let's take a look at her evidence of this. At the lowest level of moral development, individuals haven't yet internalized a sense of morality. Moral standards are dictated by adults and the consequences of breaking the rules. Children 9 years old and younger tend to fall into this category. So I find this especially ironic because Deb, who claims to be a libertarian, is now trying to force her specific sense of morality on me when I never agreed voluntarily to Deb's moral code. But okay. Punishment and obedience orientation. Children believe the rules are fixed and must be obeyed. Individualism and exchange. Children begin to realize the rules aren't absolute. I have no idea what this even has to do with my article. Resilience comes from being able not only to perceive shades of gray associated with intentions and differing perspectives, but depersonalizing them more appropriate. The phrase not everything about you is familiar to and tolerable for the resilient person. Deb, this article wasn't about you, Deb. You were not mentioned in it. No one tagged you in a tweet with it. This article literally wasn't fucking about you. You're the one that made it about you, Deb. And then you have the gall to tweet that resilience comes from being not only able to perceive the shades of gray associated with intention and differing perspectives, but depersonalizing them where appropriate. The phrase not everything is about you is familiar to and tolerable for the resilient person. Deb, you wrote a fucking 30 tweet Twitter thread about me before 10 a.m. for an article that wasn't about you in any way. Look in the fucking mirror. Resilient people are capable of making sound judgment calls. The kind one makes internally before choosing to be offended. They are not people who are never offended. Righteous indignation is not only reasonable in plenty of situations, it's advisable. Yes, Brent, Deb wrote an entire thread about herself and then projected her bullshit onto me. Resilient people can take it on the chin in defense of others, too. They stand on sidewalks getting heckled and spit at while politely asking for conversation about contentious topics. They defend themselves when necessary and don't lead with an attack. Did my article attack anyone? Did my article name anyone? My article provided save life advice. And I'm really proud of it. And I thought it was really good. Literally no one was named in my article. Oh, here's where it gets really good. Resilient people don't create burner accounts on social media to stalk people who have rejected them, disagreed with them, challenged them, or even mocked them. They accept that not everyone is going to like them or agree with them, and they move on. Now, here's the ironic part. DEB FILLMAN spends all day, every day, interacting with an account that only exists to stalk me and post my tweets because Deb has been blocked on my Twitter for like a year. So in Deb's mind, it's perfectly okay for Deb to talk about me all day, every day, which she does. I've been tracking it for the last over 2 weeks with the Twitter game. Deb has not gone more than 1 day without talking about me in the last 16 days. So she spends all day talking about me. She spends all day following a Twitter account that only exists to stalk me and post everything that I tweet so she can make fun of me with her horde and call me a narcissist and a sociopath over and over and over again. And she has the nerve to say resilient people don't create burner accounts to stalk people who have rejected them. Deb. Look in the mirror, Deb. Have some fucking self-awareness, Deb. The irony of this whole section, the writer herself goes looking for triggers as small as a single like to a tweet written in reaction to defamation and harassment by her. She's made a game of tallying these events and uses burner accounts to find them behind blocks. Yes, that's exactly it. That is exactly correct. I have created a game. Hang on, I'll bring up the game just for shits and giggles. Hang on, give me 1 second. I have indeed created a Twitter game in which the entire purpose of the Twitter game is to track how much Deb Fillman and her band of merry idiots talk about me on Twitter. Hang on, let me show you. Just gotta find it. It's been a busy, eventful day. Boop. This is the Twitter game. They're all gonna reset to 0 tomorrow because they've all talked about me today. The way that Carrie Smith, who's the good Christian, Mike Harlow, is the fame horse, stepmom, who is Deb, and the Queen, who doesn't have a real name because he doesn't deserve it. The way that you score points in this game is you don't talk about me. Deb could literally do nothing and not talk about me at all ever and win this game. The only way to score points in this game is to not talk about me. So yes, I do use burner accounts to keep track of what they say because that's part of the game. Also because if they're talking about me in public, I want to fucking know about it. And they talk about me all day, every day. You can see that Deb herself, this is day 16 of the game. Deb herself has not gone more than one single day without talking about me in the past 2 weeks. So yes, Deb, if you are spending all day, every day talking about me on Twitter, I will absolutely use burner accounts to find out what you're saying because I'm allowed to. And if you don't like it, suck a dick. I don't really care. Even though her advice to others is wrong, she doesn't take it. She excuses her behavior as the national response to triggers she claims others need to accept without comment. She uses jokes, judgment, and even advice to live and let live as justification for abuse. Like, did Deb even read this back before she posted it? Deb is literally saying that I go on Twitter saying, leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. And she's like, Carlin is just making an excuse for abuse. How dare Carlin ask to be left alone? She is using it as an excuse to continue abusing us. This makes no sense, Deb. You don't get to talk about me all day, every day, and follow a Twitter account that only exists to stalk me. And to have me be the first thing you think about in the morning and the last thing you think about before you go to sleep. You don't get to do those things without me knowing, Deb. You're doing it in public, Deb. Twitter is public. I'll create as many fucking burner accounts as I want. I am one of the people she's monitoring behind a block. Deb, you're blocked too. Deb, you have been blocked on my Twitter account for a fucking year. How did you know I wrote this article that I posted at 1 a.m.? How did you know that I wrote this article? If you weren't stalking me from behind a Twitter block. I am one of the people she's monitoring behind a block. I am also a libertarian who's concerned that people might otherwise want to align with the values and principles I hold dear will think she, as a gubernatorial candidate for the LPNH, represents those values. Deb, you don't live in New Hampshire. You don't live in New Hampshire. You are not a member of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire has no obligation at all to represent your interests. You don't live in New Hampshire. This is the best one. Catherine, this is what I told you about. This is the best tweet in this whole thing. There is nothing about this essay that respects the NAP, the non-aggression principle. Seeking to trigger people or excusing that behavior is helpful, especially in revenge to real wounds from childhood, is aggression. Justifying it so you can do some more is more aggression. Deb is literally saying in this tweet that words are violence. The non-aggression principle is only about you not using violence to coerce other people. That's all it is. You don't hurt people physically, and you don't take their stuff. And in fact, At the Libertarian Party National Convention in May, the party platform was specifically updated because of people like Deb Fillman. It was specifically updated to say that words are not violence. Because there were libertarians in the party, like Deb, who were trying to kick other libertarians out of the party for saying that words are violence, for saying things they didn't like. And it pissed off the current leadership of the Libertarian Party so much that they added it to the party platform that words are not considered to be a violation of the non-aggression principle. Deb, if she was involved with the Libertarian Party at all, would know this. But she was not involved with the Libertarian Party, is still not involved in the Libertarian Party. So she didn't. The nap is just about you don't use violence against other people. It's just you don't use violence against other people. You don't hurt other people, you don't take their stuff. That's it. Oh, Sin, you've missed an eventful stream. She is also selling her services to parents, claiming she knows how to help them with their kids. No, I'm not. I'm not claiming to help them with their children. I have never once claimed to help them with their children, Deb. That is completely incorrect. What I have said is that I will show parents how to use publicly available information to find out what the schools are teaching their kids, which I absolutely can do. But that has nothing to do with being a parent or helping them to rear children, because I don't really care. All I have said is that I will teach people how to use publicly available information to find out what the schools are doing, so that they can then use that information for whatever they want to use it for. So no, Deb, I haven't said I will help them with their kids. Those are two different things. She is also selling her services to parents, claiming she knows how to help them with their kids. And yet she behaves in the adult world exactly like the teachers of TikTok. A self-appointed parent and or therapist finding wombs or creating them to help. Deb, you understand I wrote a self-help book in like 2017, right? You understand that I am in real life a psychologist, right? You understand that I do in real life actually help people with coaching and things like that. And by giving them sage life advice. This is something that I've been doing for a very long fucking time. And she wants to compare me to libs of TikTok for creating a website that is a satirical self-help website because she has no fucking sense of humor. All right. Well, Deb, I'll make a deal with you. I'll make a deal. The people who find my website valuable can use my website. The people who don't find my website valuable can go talk to you. I think that's pretty fair. But you, Deb, are not going to stop me from writing what I want to write and saying what I want to say just because you don't like it, girl. I don't care. There's a lot wrong in our culture, but this particular brand of narcissism is top of the list. We have no shortage of adults with morality of young children, justifying abuse by blaming their targets and simultaneously claiming victim status when their targets react. Deb, you are the one claiming victim status. There's nothing unique or special about this particular case other than the fact that she is a case in point. That the higher they rise in power or fame, the more immature and fragile they get. So now we're going to hit on what the real issue is that Deb has with me, right? Deb is upset that I have a bigger platform and more influence than she has. And so Deb runs around Twitter all day lying about me because Deb is upset that she had to go interview at Trader Joe's to get a job because no one's paying her money for anything. And yet I have over 100 people funding a project that I'm working on to help train 10,000 parents how to find out what the schools are teaching their kids using publicly available information. And I've raised over $11,000 for that project. And I didn't even try that hard. Didn't even try that hard, Deb. But Deb is spending time interviewing at Trader Joe's because she can't get anyone to pay her for her services, which is why she's spending all her time attacking me on Twitter, because I can get people to pay me for my services because I provide legitimate help that they value and appreciate. And perhaps if Deb spent a lot less time writing 30 Twitter threads about me, perhaps Deb could focus her energy more productively and she could do the same thing. I'm just saying, Deb, it's an option. It's an option. You're welcome to avail yourself of it. I think that's it. Oh, she then, what was funny is so there were actually people in Deb's replies. Let's see if I can find it. Look at this. Look at this. This guy actually liked what I said. This guy was like, this is some good stuff. Let me tell you, if you get triggered or not, then eventually you won't give a fuck. And when you don't give a fuck, you're truly free. Like, this guy actually liked this. And then Deb went out of her way to try to convince him that he was wrong. Anyway, I think that's good enough for today. Guys, that is the launch of the Art of the Trigger. I'm really happy about this. I think this is going to be fun. And again, this is a project that I've been thinking about for probably about a year. I do want to write a book about this at some point. Who knows when that'll be. But for right now, I'm just going to be writing articles when I feel inspired or I feel so inclined. But if you want to subscribe to it, you can subscribe on Substack for you can actually get the audio version and the regular kind of like article version on Substack. It's artofthetrigger.com. That will redirect you right to the Substack. But you can also subscribe. It is currently listed in Apple Podcasts. I'm working on getting it up on all major podcasting platforms as well. But I'm just gonna have fun with this, guys. This is a satirical self-help website where I'm gonna teach you how to trigger your enemies for fun and amusement. And in the process, I'm gonna teach you how to avoid getting triggered yourself. And this is just my little kind of, I know, like I need another project, right? But like, this is kind of one of those things, like with most of my writing projects, like I write them when I feel like writing them. I write them when like I'm inspired to write them. That's what this is going to be. I might write a lot sometimes. I might write not a lot sometimes, but I do think it's going to be fun. And I think it's going to be an interesting project. And if you guys have ideas or issues that you want me to tackle, do let me know. All right, guys, that's all we're going to do for today. As a reminder, I do have my second stream today, nothing remotely controversial, with Joshua in about 3 hours at 9:30 tonight. So make sure you stop back in and join us for that stream. It's going to be a great old time. And then tomorrow, I'm giving a webinar on change management and how we can use change management principles to beat back the woke cultural revolution that we are experiencing in this country. You can register for that over at activelyunwoke.com/events, and it is free. There is a donation if you want to make a donation, but you don't have to make a donation if you don't want to. You can come completely for free, and that's totally fine. And I will see some of you tomorrow at 8 p.m. for that webinar. That's all I got for right now, guys. Take care. Mount that like button on your way out the door, and we'll see you soon.